Hi there, folks. I'm JP, and I did a major new release of PlaceKey recently, and I wanted to make a video that was just dedicated to going over what's in the new release, because it might be of interest to some folks. Yeah, so for those who are unfamiliar with the program, PlaceKey is an ASCII art and animation and game creation program. You can make different kinds of pictures with it, yeah, using ASCII art. Yeah, and yeah, I recently released, just yesterday, I released the 0.9.0 update, which adds a few things. I decided a major version number release was worth it because it adds like a big new thing. And yeah, let's jump straight into what that big new thing is. So PlaceKey now has an importer and exporter system. Previously, you know, it supported a few like kind of more bespoke import and export features, and the way that they were tied into the code base was a little more, you know, unique. Whereas now there's just sort of a general system for it. There are now little bits of Python code in the formats subdirectory that control like what formats it can read and write to, and because it's a plugin type format, you can provide your own. You can like go into your own documents folder without modifying PlaceKey's like core code or anything. And so yeah, that means that if you are a game developer using PlaceKey to work on to make some other kind of thing that isn't like using PlaceKey as its engine, like say late last year, Jim Crawford released a game called Frog Fractions 2, and it was a big deal. Like it had been secret for a super long time, and there was all this sort of ARG weirdness going into it. But the actual game part of that featured an ASCII, a ZZT style DOS ASCII thing. I don't want to spoil anything more about it than that, but yes, it has a section of it that is an ASCII art, like traditional DOS looking kind of thing where yeah, you're just going around in a top-down perspective. And he used PlaceKey. This was, you know, back like last year and the year before. He started using PlaceKey like when it was still a relatively new program to edit the world map. You know, so he was basically using PlaceKey as an art/level design tool. And he had a few, like we went back and forth on a few things that he needed for that, or things that he was trying to figure out how to do. I didn't end up doing that much unique support work, and he gave me like a great list of feedback things, some of which I implemented, some of which are still on my to-do list. But anyway, yeah, that was sort of something that made me realize, like, oh yeah, people find this program useful. And one of the things that would make it more useful is the ability to talk to other programs and like get data into and out of this from other things. And you know, from the very start, I offered like the image export, because obviously when you have a cool looking image, you want to be able to just like turn that into a PNG or a JPEG or something and share that, you know, on anything where you can post an image. But yeah, there were other things to it. So anyway, that's why I programmed this importer exporter system. I was also doing like, I took a few photos like in my neighborhood and converted and wanted to like do ASCII conversions of them. And I was like, yeah, I'm noticing that I'm doing a lot of the same operations when I convert something. Like oftentimes I'll resize the image just right so that it actually fits the proportions of the image, and a lot of times I will do this palette from image thing where you can you can take a photo or just any sort of image and then generate a color palette that PlaceKey can use from that. And you know, there's like a thing where you can say how many unique colors you want, like dither this down to 32 colors and then make a palette that I can use in PlaceKey out of that. But I was always doing that, and so I was like, well, wait, what if I just made something that, what if I just streamlined that process and made like that whole process of like resizing and custom tuning a palette just a core part of the workflow for image stuff. And then I realized that that actually converged entirely with this import export thing that I had done a little bit of work on last year. Yeah, because I realized that exporting an image is just another converting an image, importing an image rather, is just another form of import export. So I should just make it work within that system, and I did. In order to do that, I had to so this is the new way that you do this, and I'm going to be recording another much shorter video, by the way, that's just like a how-to, since people seem to love YouTube how-tos as an alternative to written documentation, which I certainly have. then yeah, I'm just gonna like do like a like a quick like 5-minute video or something just going over this. But yeah, this is that new options screen for converting an image. So now like you pick the actual bitmap image, like the JPEG or something, your photograph or your drawing or whatever that you want to convert, and then it brings up this options thing. So every format you can import and export can have an options screen that provides like if you need to be able to tune anything about it. So yeah, you can see here, yeah, we can say here use the existing palette that I'm already using, or make a palette from the source image. That it's basically just saving you that extra step of having to like go into the character and color menu and do that manually. And then also just like it offers to just scale the image for you if you want to like make something that already proportionally fits to it. Yeah, and then actually this is going to kill my CPU while I'm recording here, so I don't want to do that. Anyway, the image conversion process works exactly as it did before. Other things it can do are like, yeah, I wanted to write some tests. I wanted to implement some of the existing functionality into this new importer exporter system. One of the things that I wanted it to be able to do is So yeah, the original DOS version of Doom, when you would exit to DOS, it would display this ASCII screen. It didn't look exactly like this, but it would display this ASCII screen that was like, you've just been playing Doom shareware version or Doom registered version, blah, blah, blah. And that data that defines what that ASCII screen looks like is stored in the Doom resource file, the WAD. There haven't always been easy, like there's only a few ways that you can edit. People in the modern Doom community often want to, like, it's sort of like the little cherry on top to be able to provide a custom one of those for your particular project. So if you do like a big megawad project or something and you want to have like a cool end screen graphic for ports that support it. I mean, like various modern versions of Doom don't support that ASCII screen, but it's considered a cool thing that you can do. Anyway, there weren't many good options for editing in Doom lumps, as they are called, and so yeah, I wanted to make an importer and an exporter. So yes, now you can totally like make one of these on your own and just export it. There are definitely restrictions, like it's got to be the DOS character set and IBM EGA palette. You can only use the first 8 characters as the background. So that's an example of yeah. Let me open up the this format is a little bit more complicated than some others, but yeah. And then it just goes through and like reads and writes raw bytes, because it was like this very efficient like DOS era format. Anyway, so yeah, that's a thing it can do. Another example that's maybe a little easier to grok like what it's doing is plain text. So if you have a oh wait, yeah, I guess the blank bits of the image got this was just a piece of ASCII art that I downloaded off the internet, and what this thing is a sorry, let me open this up. So yeah, this is just a text file that people, I mean, Usenet and just all manner of, there's plenty of plain text ASCII art that really is just represented as characters that you can copy and paste in Notepad, and a lot of times you use Notepad or a text editor to author these things. Well, what if you wanted to revisit one of your old, like, classic pieces of ASCII art? Well, you can do that and then like add color to it, or add multiple layers to it, or integrate it into some larger piece or something. Well, you can totally do that now because there's a plain text importer, and it works pretty much exactly as you would expect it. It'll work differently with different character sets because not every character set has like all of the characters that might appear in a piece of DOS ASCII art. But yeah, and then this, like I added that text importer like just kind of on a whim, like as I was finishing up the release and like writing up the documentation, because I realized that it would be so simple. And sure enough, yeah, like this thing, it's in the right pane here. This thing is all of like, the core logic for it is like 20 lines, less than 20 lines of code, I guess. So it's a very small amount of code that you just plop into a directory. So this is the example that I'm pointing people to for if you want to write your own importer or exporter for your own game or whatever, then this is a good starting point for how you do it. So anyway, yeah, that is those are some examples of what the import-export system can do. I ended up having, in order to be able to do like say this screen here. This screen in particular, I was like, yeah, I want to have like radio buttons and checkboxes, because previously I did not. The PlaceKey's UI code system that I cobbled together did not have that capability at all. And so I was like, yeah, I want to be able to do radio buttons and checkboxes. How do I do that? So that ended up being like a bit of a refactor. It made the surrounding, like all of that UI code stuff, like sort of more flexible and extensible. So in the future, you can very easily, like if you need to code up an options screen for your own format, then you can absolutely do so, and it's all pretty straightforward, and there are copious examples in the formats directory. So anyway, yeah, like you can, I'm using the keyboard to navigate here, but it's also, of course, mouse friendly. You can still do all of the normal stuff. Radio buttons like select exclusively, like these two options are exclusive, whereas a checkbox you can just toggle it on and off. Yeah, so that's cool. Radio buttons were graduating into the mid 80s as far as user interface design technology, so that's exciting. What else? Oh yeah, this was another cool thing. So yeah, PlaceKey has always done in its dialog boxes, it's always done a sort of like input validation, where if you enter something invalid, like say it needs you to input a scale factor here. And so if you change the default and you're curious as to what the things would be, like I just deleted that, and so now this field contains nothing, and the program will not in fact let you continue without inputting valid stuff. And previously it did put up a message that would say what was wrong with the input you had given it, but it was up in this message line thing, and it felt kind of disconnected from the dialog box, and maybe people didn't even understand what was happening. So I moved it down here and made it red so that it's very clear what's happening, like it's on the dialog box itself, and it just yeah. And in this case, it's like, oh, it's got to be greater than 0, so it can be basically anything, but this is what I know I've got to do, and that re-enables the export button that allows you to continue. Yeah, what else? Yeah, so I did this image, and this photograph is like, a place nearby, and yeah, like the yellow on these crosswalks was really, really bright, and it was almost like sort of jarring. And I was like, yeah, I want to be able to, so I generated this nice looking palette from this 256 color palette from these images. But I want to be able to, I kind of want to tone down this yellow, but I don't want to like have to reconvert the entire image, because the palette itself really is just a bitmap image. So I've got this open in my paint program of choice here, and yeah, and so I was like, yeah, I want to be able to tune this palette, but wouldn't it be nice if I could just do this like at runtime? Like if I could tune the colors, because PlaceKey doesn't have any sort of like actually altering the colors, like tuning the colors in your palette. You pretty much just have to like, this is PlaceKey's palette interface, where you can just choose from a whole bunch of different options, and yeah. But it doesn't let you actually set those colors, whereas image editing programs do let you change colors, and they have all kinds of cool ways to do it. So I wanted to be able to make that a little more directly linked in. So let's say, so basically what I added was the ability for PlaceKey to notice if a palette file, if a source palette image has been changed in another program, and then reload that in the application without having to like reload the art or reload the palette or anything like that. Well, it reloads the palette, but it does that automatically. So here I've made like a change that should be very obvious. I've turned some of these yellow colors magenta, and then when I re-export it in GIMP, it updates it in the image basically instantly. So you can tune, if you're doing ASCII art and you're doing a custom palette for it, you can tune that a lot more easily now, which is cool. So yeah, that was another feature that I added. Let's see. Oh yeah, so for a while now, I mean, PlaceKey has always been on itch.io. You can find it by searching for PlaceKey on itch. And itch, a while ago, they created this really cool app where it functions very much like the Steam client, and you can use it to browse games and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's just all kinds of cool, it's very much just like a storefront, and it's great because it's an alternative to Steam. Anybody can submit stuff to it. I can submit PlaceKey to it whenever I feel like it without paying anybody anything. So anyway, yeah, PlaceKey, and one of the things you can do from this is you can install and launch programs that you have, that you've bought, or free things that are just available for download. And so for a while, it has been possible. I think it has worked just fine in Windows and OS X, Mac OS X. And I tested that out, made sure that worked. But for a little while, for like the Linux, somebody let me know that the Linux version, because it's loading from source, it's less clear to the client, to the itch app, how to load that properly. And so I added a little manifest file that tells it like what exactly to run. So now you should be able to launch PlaceKey from the itch.io app, as you would like any other kind of thing. Now, the caveat with this is that you will need to have all of the PlaceKey dependencies installed. You'll need Python 3 and then all the dependencies that are listed in PlaceKey's README file, and that's why I added this link to the documentation here. There's a list of dependencies. You can install them very easily by running pip. If you're a Linux user, I'm guessing that you're already like way ahead of the curve on this kind of stuff, because but it is just a matter of installing some dependencies. Itch does not really have understandably a distro agnostic way of installing dependencies. That is a whole big kettle of fish. Anyway, what else do we got here? I think we're getting down to the last few little minor things. I guess I added some new character sets. I was reminded that the Atari ST character set was pretty cool, so I added that. I found that data somewhere, and added that. I added like the alternative like square 8x8 pixel character DOS character set, because you use that if you're going for like a 40 column DOS look, and it's basically identical to the classic like 80 column code page 437, but yeah. What else? Oh yeah, and I also added I was looking at some Pac-Man, at all the different Pac-Man mazes that are in the original arcade game, and I was like, yeah, these are all very tile-based. So what if I just made Pac-Man's color scheme and tile set like its own thing? And so yeah, I added that just as an example of like, in addition to ASCII art, PlaceKey is just sort of like a tile editor, and you can like use it to do different stuff. And I was like retracing a Pac-Man maze. As it turns out, Pac-Man mazes have a lot of like kind of, it's sort of unnecessarily fiddly, because there's like different inside out versus outside curve pieces and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not gonna question design decisions that were made over 25 years ago, but I don't know. Yeah, I just included Pac-Man stuff just for fun, and like the actual tiles themselves, I don't think are copyrighted, and the colors are just the colors. So, but yeah, it's just an example of like, hey, there's a tile editor sort of thing. And then there's a whole bunch of fixes. There were several bugs with the pop-up here, where like if you were using a small character set, it would get kind of gummed up, and so I fixed a lot of. This is among the most skunky, oldest UI code in PlaceKey, so I fixed up a bunch of stuff with that. I fixed some crashes. Yeah, I don't know. It's on this list. I don't know if I'm going to release this change list publicly. You can see it on Bitbucket if you look at the project's source repository. But yeah, I think that's about it. So yeah, importer-exporter stuff and some cool new UI stuff. Yeah, and now you can write importers and exporters. So if you're using PlaceKey for your own game development stuff, or if you write a cool importer-exporter that would be more generally useful, then please let me know. You can even submit a pull request to the project's Bitbucket page. Yeah. And I think that's about all I've got. But yeah, PlaceKey 090 is out, and you can download it and use it. And let me know if you think it's cool, or if you have a suggestion, or whatever. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I don't know when I'll next do a lot of work on PlaceKey. I just kind of decided to start doing it on a whim, because I was enjoying it, and this seemed like a good bit of functionality. So I've got a ton of other things like still, like on the roadmap and stuff. Let's see, I've got a Trello. So if you care specifically about where PlaceKey goes next, like I've got a big board here of like all the potential things that I could work on. None of these things are promises, obviously. So, you know, but if you see something on here that would be like, hey, I'm making a game or a piece of art with PlaceKey, and this particular feature would be really useful. Anybody, I think you only just like, I made this as open as possible. Like, it's not closed off to, you know, a particular, yeah, like you might have to have a Trello account, but those are free and you can just sign up for it. But yeah, one thing you can do is you can vote for a particular card. So if you see a feature that you really like, that you think that would be very useful to you, then you can go ahead and vote for it. And then I will take that into consideration because, you know, I don't spare a lot of time to work on PlaceKey these days, and if I'm working on something that I know will be useful to a lot of people, then that gives me an extra incentive to do so. But yeah, that's all I've got for now. PlaceKey 090. Play it, enjoy it. If you find any bugs, please file bugs on the project's Bitbucket. But yeah, that's all I've got for now, and thank you so much for, yeah. Thank you, Patreon patrons, for the support. Folks on Patreon have been supporting me since the very beginning of PlaceKey's development, and it has now matured into a pretty cool little program. So yeah, and if you make something, I was showing the Tumblr here. Yeah, if you make something cool, like a lot of the posts on this are cool things that other people have made with PlaceKey. So yeah, if you make something cool, then feel free to submit it to Tumblr or post at it at PlaceKey on Twitter, and yeah, I will reblog it on here to show off cool stuff that y'all are doing. So anyway, that's all I've got for now. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.